Hello, Internet. I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we talk about video game stuff. Wouldn't you know? I mean, like, we decided to sit down and talk about video games, and I make the same joke every episode. I'm sorry.
This won't be 3 hours long.
Oh my goodness. Still recovering from editing that monster of a Witcher episode you made me do.
I like Witcher.
And I don't believe you, this might just be that long, because
No.
today we're going to be talking about something really fun in video games.
Yeah.
Or it could be really
Or
awful.
story
really,
in general.
You never really know. And while we talk about this topic today that I will introduce in just a moment, we're going to be visually playing a little Pokemon Crystal, and hopefully something that I could just ignore completely, because we're just going to be biking up and down and hatching some Pokemon eggs, and there might be a shiny in there, some fun thing to look for while we're recording this. But we're only really doing it because this game actually comes up in our list today of games with fun plot twists.
Fun plot twist?
Well, just... Okay, so we decided to make...
Exciting plot twists?
Okay, how do I even go about
Plot
saying this?
twist.
So we wanted to originally, if you remember, Kim made an episode about side companions, like good and bad side characters in games.
I love making lists.
Well, then she started making a list about antagonists, which we kind of expected was going to happen. But then I was telling her, like, hold on, a lot of those antagonists, you like them because of the plot twist that they're associated with, not the character themselves.
Very true.
So I said, why don't you make a list about plot twists? And here we are, once again, not talking about the main characters and the antagonists. We're doing the silly stuff first. So we're going to talk about plot twists in video games.
And we've realized a lot of video games have the same plot twists, so we've put them into a category together.
Yeah, or rather I kind of did. I started making the list of like a bunch of different concepts that happen, and this isn't just video games, this is books, movies, comics. We see this kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, but we're just talking about the video game ones that we love.
We're only going to give examples from video games, but we're going to talk about stuff that just happens all the time. Now, as I kind of mentioned, some plot twists we really like, and others, boy, they wear out their welcome, or you just see them coming, and you're just like, please make this stop. Yeah.
Well, this list, the positives are a lot longer than the negatives.
The reason I think we started with the good stuff last time was because we wanted to establish, one, we're not just trying to pick on games. We want to talk about both the good and the bad. But at the same time, we had to establish something before we just ripped on a bunch of bad side characters. But plot twists, like, for the most part, we have a lot of really good ones to talk about. And then there's not even just, like, one, like, type of plot twist we're only going to give you one game for. We're going to say multiple things for each one.
And forgive us if there is an actual literary term for what these plot twists are. We aren't educated enough.
I'm not an English teacher. I was an art teacher, which means I'm actually an idiot, but nobody really knows that. So, anyway...
Well, now the whole internet knows that.
Since the list is shorter, and I think it would at least be less interesting, or not less interesting, more like, let's establish the bad stuff first. We'll change it up.
Man, this first one really grinds my gears, like, every time.
Okay, plot twists we hate. And these, by the way, are all in no particular order. It's kind of hard to rank,
it's not like
a plot twist,
or whatever.
Or it was like more surprising versus less surprising. It's a plot twist is a plot twist. So yeah, the very first one, Kim, what did I have on my list?
We have It Was All a Dream.
Ooh. I think this happens more so in movies anymore.
It really does.
I hate this.
And anime, I feel like that happens a lot.
I'm sure if I sat down and thought about, like, what games did It Was All a Dream, and it isn't, like, the entire game sometimes. Sometimes it's just, like, a segment. Like, there's a segment in Metal Gear Solid 4 where you just start playing the first game, and, of course, you get to, like, a certain checkpoint, and Snake just wakes up in a helicopter, and it was all a dream, and it was just a really cheesy intro to get you back to Shadow Moses Island, and had nothing to do with,
Right, well, and that even makes me think of Metal Gear Solid 5, with the whole thing with pause, too.
That's a totally different...
It's a different thing.
That's a completely different kind
anyway,
of
we're talking about... It Was All a Dream, but we're talking about the bad examples of those. So we are not talking about, like, Link's Awakening, because that's a dream.
So before we go any further, I should mention, just for us being polite, we are going to be talking some minor spoilers. We're going to do our best not to, but obviously, like, we're talking
There's
about...
a lot of major spoilers in this list. I don't know what you're talking about.
To be fair and to be nice to you guys, I'm going to list at least, like, the names of some of the games we're going to talk about. So if any of them are, like, huge you really want to play or, like, absolutely do not want to hear about a certain plot twist for, even though we're going to talk generally about, like, what the twist kind of is.
How about every time we say the name of a game, we pause for 2 seconds, let that person skip if they want to.
Sure, yeah. But we should mention, like, what the games are going to be for each of these segments. So for this first one, it was all a dream. We have a couple games to talk about really briefly, and I'm sure, like I said, we could have came up with more. But for now, we have Spiritfarer and Mario 2. And I mean Super Mario Bros. 2 USA on the NES. That was my contribution to this one. I
actually finished Spiritfarer relatively recently.
Yeah, I finished it with you.
I was so disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the beginning of that game is really good.
I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's probably going to be a good review to talk about, but for now, just talking about the twist, which is a real shame in this case of it was all a dream, because the entire game, you think... And this is really the entire subversion of what a plot twist is. You think that you're one thing, and surprise, it's another. But the thing is, what you thought you were in Spiritfarer was so much cooler than, oh, it's just a dream, and you're actually just in a coma. You know, that's so lazy.
It is very... I
don't even know if it's lazy. It's like going out of your way to make your...
so much more you could have done, or you could have stuck with the supernatural theme, and I would have been totally on board with that.
It's almost self-sabotage. Yeah.
But, like, it's the slow... You realize it's slowly a dream. Now, I understand. I think this game can be interpreted in different ways. Mm-hmm. I believe that the ending can. But the way that I interpreted it is that you're slowly meeting characters in it that you've met in real life, and they're not actually dead, or they are dead, and then eventually, you know, you figure out that you were just in a coma the whole time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because apparently you're just in a dream. And the whole time you thought you were actually making meaningful contributions to their lives and helping these actual spirits pass over, and it meant something when you fulfilled their wishes and you helped them do it. But then if you just make it all in your brain, all of a sudden nothing matters anymore, and it's like it completely flushed the entire game down.
It was just very unfortunate. Because it's not like at the end of that, like, at the beginning of that game, you're being given... passing the torch. The torch is being passed to you for being the Spiritfarer, and you don't do that at the end of the game. Which apparently means
nothing.
Because you're just in a coma, and you just pass on yourself.
Yeah. It's set up something grander than what it actually was. And the plot twist was, hey, psych, this game's actually not as ambitious as you thought it was.
Yeah.
Or as impactful.
So, Mario 2.
Yeah, Mario 2. I wanted to talk about Mario 2 here because I know I'm talking about an NES game about plot twists. But to be fair, when else am I going to be able to do this? But, hey, so what sucks about this is not only we're on an NES, but I mean, to be fair, if you get any plot twists on a NES, sure, it's supposed to be fun. Unless you get to the end of your Mario game and you just get a little... cutscene of during your credits, Mario is sleeping in his bed and he's dreaming about the final encounter, just telling you it was all in his brain. None of this ever happened. And this really is like the definitive, the entirety of what you did. Your main character was actually just asleep and nothing happened. It's like not only a cop-out to make sure that nothing was canon, but it's just this super... It gives you a bad feeling. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes this. Why would you actively want to go... Oh, I feel so good. Everything I worked on was just a dream.
Yeah, because you want to make real... Well, I know you're just playing a video game, but...
Sure.
But I know you're just playing a video game, but you still want to make a meaningful interaction for your person playing the video game.
Nobody wants to feel like what they did didn't matter. Like, I can tell you from experience from making videos, nothing sucks more than working like all day on a video and then like some computer thing goes wrong, a crash, whatever, and everything that I've done is gone, that I've done all day. That is devastating. Now, this is an entire video game that someone just experienced and they went through, and they're like, by the way, none of that mattered. None of it. Oh, and for the record, I accidentally jumped into the grass, and you can see I have a shiny Houndour, which is the last one that I hatched into, but anyway.
Anyway, our next plot twist that we hate.
Bad stuff. I guess I got this one. So, this next one is obvious plots or traps that you are forced to fall for. So a lot of times you're going to see something coming from a mile away,
but
but
your characters are like,
you gotta fall for it.
To progress the story.
Yeah, just to quickly list the games, just to make sure we're not spoiling anything for you guys unintentionally, we're going to talk briefly about Ni no Kuni, Legend of Dragoon, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and Kirby in general. We don't even have, like, a Kirby specific game.
Not that I hate that Kirby does that.
Oh, no, this is a good example. I love Kirby games. But Kirby does this all the time.
It's like a trope for Kirby.
Yeah, well, Kirby's like this lovable, silly boy. It's probably the safest one to start with.
Well, yeah, let's just start with Kirby.
Yeah, Kirby's this lovable, cute little character who, of course, is going to fall for silly things all the time. That's just what he does. He's a little cute boy. But, yeah, every single game you can reliably say you are teaming up with the bad guy, helping them do their bad things, and
your cute companion is going to turn into the final boss at the end of the game.
And turn into some gross eldritch abomination. Happens every time.
Every time.
Kirby
and
never sees it coming.
You know as the player this is going to happen. But Kirby, he is adorable and oblivious, and I do not hate him for that. I actually kind of like the trope when it comes to Kirby, because you know it's coming. It's reliable.
It's cute. But now we can finally move on to those others. You had your chance to skip over this, and boy, I am hurting for eggs right now. These two need to get busy. So, how about a recent one that I just reviewed? So, if anything, if you just watch my YouTube videos, you would know what this plot twist is, because I break it wide open, because honestly, I hate this game quite a bit the more I think about it. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is one of the most overrated video games I have ever played in my life. And I played Shadow of the Colossus! We're not getting into that right now, I hate that game too. But anyway, so Tears of the Kingdom, Link, repeatedly, and repeatedly I mean like throughout the entire game, will come into instances where he hears about, supposedly, Zelda, whom he is looking for, to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Zelda supposedly appeared to this group of people, insert any group of people in Zelda, and she did some thing that seemed pretty evil and set them up for something that caused a bunch of problems. Link doesn't understand what this could possibly be. And then, from there, you have to go through the story, and eventually you stop basically a puppet iteration that Ganon made to fool everyone into thinking that it was actually Zelda. And this happens, I lost track of how many times. But Link falls for it every single time. And then after you've fallen for it every single time in the main story, you then have to go to Hyrule Castle, where Link repeatedly falls for it over and over again. You will turn corners in Hyrule Castle, see Zelda, Link runs up like a doofus, and she, like, dissolves into monsters. And Link still just keeps running up to a fake Zelda, like, who is this? God, Link, just start shooting arrows or something. Like, why don't you warn anybody? You know, like, this is something where you just want to shout at your main character, this obvious, like, traps and plots thing that, like, it drives me bonkers. And there's a lot of games where this happens. This was just the most recent one where I was like, this is outrageous. Like, the entire game is all, like, this all happens because your main character is inept. Anyway.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Legend of Dragoon, and I'm not going to get any specifics here, because it's been really over a decade since I've played that game, so
well, you don't really need
specifics
to.
Isn't,
With this one, your examples are pretty general anyway.
With Legend of Dragoon, you know, as story progresses, you need to go to this next area to get this relic, treasure, I don't remember what they're called.
Sure.
You're going to go there, and you're going to find it, and then you find that the enemy has gotten there first, and they've already grabbed it, so you get into a boss fight with them. And I think this at least happens 4 times. And I remember even the second time, I was like, no, let's not go there. And I was trying to direct my characters to go in a different direction, because we're like, we know what the other things are that we need to get. So how about we go get that first?
Go where the bad guys aren't first.
Exactly, and get that taken care of. And I just remember yelling at my screen, please, let's not go fight Zeke again, picking up this item.
That actually, that's also kind of like the arriving too late trope.
That's what it is. Like, you arrive too late every single time.
That's basically, you've described the entire story of Pokemon Sword and Shield, but that's just because Game Freak didn't want to or have the ability to animate anything. So you would just show up after the adults did the real story, and then just kind of learned about what happened, go to the next area, and then just, I just catch wind of what actually happened, where the plot was, not where I was.
So then this next one that we played together.
Yeah, we did.
Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, if we want to do the full title. The first one.
I got around to reviewing that game, so...
There are 2 games for this, so we're talking about the first one.
Yes, specifically the first Ni no Kuni. This is back when I had faith in this actually being a good game. I don't mean to crap on a bunch of stuff. Maybe we should have started with the good stuff
first. I like crapping on stuff.
I promise we will talk very highly of the rest of the games when we get the good twists.
These don't hurt us so much that they hurt the impression. Well, some of them do. That they hurt the impression of the game. Whereas,
this particular twist didn't hurt my impression of the game. I think the game had kind of soured itself for other reasons.
Right.
But the particular twist we're talking about with Ni no Kuni that should have been obvious to everyone from the get-go is the game establishes this concept that in the real world and in the fantasy world, there are some people that are basically conjoined. There's like one-to-one versions of these other characters.
They're like shadow versions of yourself.
Yeah, basically.
But they're not like evil or anything like that.
Some are, and that's the thing. Like, it's painfully clear that your main character doesn't have one, and you're like, okay, so who's it going to be, and why is it going to be the final boss?
You ran into everybody else's alternate.
Well, yeah, you keep running into... If they're a main character, they have one, and you keep running into everybody, except your mom, who weirdly doesn't have one.
She does.
No, she doesn't.
I thought she was the witch.
No, she's not. I had to research this for my video. She's not.
Okay.
That game was a disaster. So anyway, no, it's much. You would think so.
I thought she was the witch. I thought she was the witch.
You would think so because your main.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And what's funny is the witch is not the main antagonist
of
this.
No, it's not.
It's actually this dude named Shadar, who is really just like the head henchman of the White Witch. But anyway, of course, that is your one-to-one character, because one, he has a hood up the whole time and won't show you his face.
And he's got the same hair color as you.
It's obvious. And, like, you know it for so long. You catch on very quickly. Yeah, and boy, that maybe that's another thing. Like, you can catch on to these things because of the pacing with some of these games. Like, Tears of the Kingdom wants to be obnoxiously long, as does Ni no Kuni and Legend of Dragoon, so that's just a thing. Whereas Kirby, like, you kind of know what's going to happen. The game's short and it's cute and it just kind of plays with that. So I think you can do this twist well and you could do it very badly. But for the sake of time, we should move on, because we have lots to talk about.
This next one we actually don't have too many examples of.
I'm sure if we sat down and like really had more time, which of course, believe it or not, we don't have enough time every 2 weeks to plan making even more of these for episodes. I am doing my best. I am all by myself. Anyway.
So for the next one, we have Supernatural for no reason.
Yep. Uncharted, looking at you. What was that about, Uncharted?
You know, another one I thought of was Until Dawn.
Oh, yeah, perfect, exactly. So what this means is when you have sucked yourself into the game, you've been fully immersed, and it's the kind of game that 100% can actually happen in real life. And it's really intriguing, and it's engaging. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, there's this supernatural twist where I think the writers are supposed to make you go like, whoa, wow. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but of course you weren't, because you were grounded in reality. So if anything, all it did was shatter your immersion when all of a sudden in Uncharted, a bunch of weird like zombie munchkin things start running at you.
Well, and then I also think, is it Uncharted 2 where you go to
the city and like blue people
and the blue people are drinking this liquid and everything, and it's this unnatural,
it turns you into like steroid monsters. Uncharted 1 was... Okay, each iteration of Uncharted, it got slightly less supernatural.
Yeah, like 4, I don't think has anything supernatural.
It doesn't. No, they were toning it down till eventually in 4 it was gone completely. Yeah. However, Until Dawn is a much better example, because
I'm glad I just randomly thought about that.
That's great, because that's a story that's basically like a murder mystery killer on the loose kind of thing. Of course, like the tropes of like the slasher films, a bunch of teenage/college age kids are all spending the night out in the middle of nowhere in a wilderness in one large mansion, right? And one of them's secretly killing all the others. And, of course, you would think just figuring out who the actual villain is and what's actually happening is the point, and that really honestly was what made the game so fun. Till you realize, oh, there's actually some supernatural monsters that are actually doing this. And yes, there was a killer, but that's just a secondary thing. And it's almost like the main the main plot gets shelved because, oh, there's actually a bunch of monsters.
Like they just took it away from what the main plot was.
It's so lame.
I'm so happy I thought of a second game for that.
Yeah, but who likes that? I think that's actually the only one we had one. We'll see when we get farther, but still, like who likes that twist? Like, that's not a... I don't want to call it just a bad plot twist, but just avoid this. It's not good.
Because you've already established this certain way of thinking for your player. Don't change that. We're enjoying it the way it is.
Right, yeah. Like, I don't know. It's important to me for immersion in a video game, especially one where you want me to take it seriously, like in a murder mystery.
Right.
Or in, like, a thriller, like Uncharted, where you want me to, like, actually be afraid of death. You want me to try and take the situation seriously. But I can't do that if you subvert all my expectations and magic shows up for no reason.
So our next one is...
Character decided to pull a 180 and become evil.
And there's, like, no hints of that happening at all through the game. Because there are some games where your character's kind of dropping hints that they're probably going to be your villain later.
Yeah, and some of them are actually pretty clever. Like, I love it when you can go back through a game for a second time. You're like, I didn't pick up on that. I'm going to list a couple series here, and no one cares if I spoil a Pokemon game because those stories suck. And then there is, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's on the bad list, Shin Megami Tensei 5. Oh boy, so basically what this twist is, just to give you a moment here, if you actually care, is suddenly, like, you have a companion character or a side character who's with you throughout the most of the entire game, and seems to be just an ordinary, meek character, and all of a sudden... And this is the worst trope, gets spiky hair, their eyes become angular, they start talking really mean, and, like, they completely shift 180 degrees and make absolutely no sense whatsoever with, like, there was no, like, build-up to the character switching. Now, this happens all the time in Pokemon. The most recent one that I can think of was the what became the antagonist of Legends Arceus, even though that game had no actual story, so someone just had to show up and fill the role. So it's just random guy.
I don't even know that guy's name, but I know who the character is.
Yeah, I don't even know his name. He shows up at the end of the game like, oh, by the way, so you need a final boss, so I've got some L'Oreal, and, like, my hair's spiky now, and I'm kind of sinister looking, and I have a really strong team instead of that Togepi you thought I had before. Like, that's that. Right. And then in Shin Megami Tensei 5, that series is actually generally really good at building characters that will slowly like
descend into madness.
Yes, in different directions of madness, in law and chaos. And that's, like, the theme of the series, that there is no such thing as evil, there is just a divergence of ideals. Except in this game, where you basically have someone who literally just gets spiky hair and angry eyes, and all of a sudden he's a boss. And I hate it. And it's terrible. And we're moving on. You know it's bad. You all hate it too. Like, come on, like, spend more time writing your characters. Like, no one is going to be upset that your character was more fleshed out.
This next one, I didn't even know was a thing that bothered me or was a trope until we wrote it down, and then it made me so angry. So...
Actually, I think I wrote most of this list. And then we just started adding games to it.
Actually, you're going to be playing as someone else now.
Yeah.
This is just bad.
Or really, in another way, you thought the main character was X, but actually it's Y.
So the list of games we're going to talk about, just real quick for any spoilers, if people want to skip, we're talking about Metal Gear Solid 2, Kingdom Hearts 2, Donkey Kong Country 3,
or 2. Mostly 3.
And Nier Automata.
Yeah, okay, so the simplest iteration of this would actually be to talk about Metal Gear Solid 2 first.
Yeah.
And this is something, luckily, this happens really early in the game, so it's not even too much of a spoiler, but this entire game was advertised that you were going to be playing as Solid Snake in a brand new PS2 Metal Gear Solid game. And that was actually just a trick. All of the clips were from the very beginning tanker mission where you actually play as Solid Snake. Whereas the entire game you're actually playing as a new character, Raiden, and spectating as the real Solid Snake does the actual work in the real mission. And even though the game itself is great, I really love that game, it is still a slap in the face, and nobody actually appreciates, like, what that was.
And the thing was, that was his intention.
Oh yeah, the intention was to subvert this because Hideo Kojima didn't actually want to make a Metal Gear Solid 2, whereas he also didn't want to make a 3, or a 4, or a 5. But that's another set of problems.
So, Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, you probably already know this. If you booted the game, you know what this is.
So, that's the thing with Kingdom Hearts 2, though. If you played the in-between games, you probably could have guessed
you might
this
have seen
was
this
coming.
Yeah, you probably would have seen this coming.
But if you're just trying to play the main games in Kingdom Hearts, which I never recommend if you're going to get into Kingdom Hearts, play all of them.
I would recommend don't get into Kingdom Hearts. You're better off just watching Disney films and playing Final Fantasy games. Just
you play
keep them
Kingdom
separate.
Hearts 1, you're playing as Sora, everything's great, it's on the cover. You pick up Kingdom Hearts 2, Sora's on the cover again, you're like, okay, we're playing as Sora, we're doing this song and dance again. That's great. You boot up the game, you're Roxas.
You're playing as Roxas, and it's for hours. This isn't
so
even like
agonizing.
This isn't even like a Metal Gear Tanker mission reversed, where the character you didn't want to play as starts you out. This goes on. I don't remember how long you're there.
So long. I was so excited when I got to Sora. I didn't even finish this game completely because I got so mad at it.
Yeah, it's for other reasons, but this particular twist in general, it is like I hate this. It's just unbearable. Now I get that they wanted to establish who Roxas was and his importance in the story,
which I think they kind of did in like prequel and between game things. I'm not too sure. I played Chain of Memories, but I didn't.
Well, Chain of Memories was supposed to establish why Sora was inside of that weird little crystal thing. To necessitate Roxas' story.
Then I should have been like, he's not going to be in 2. But then how am I supposed to expect that was canon with the rest of the games?
That was just the beginning of them descending into complete and utter madness, but whatever.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. I have a simple one for you. So basically, think of a very simple one here. Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. You play as Donkey Kong. And, surprise, he has a companion character who can join you, Diddy Kong. And you play through, this is Diddy Kong's first game, and you play with the two of them together, Stop King K. Rool. It's great. And they make a sequel, because, of course, it's one of the greatest Super Nintendo games. Graphically, it's fantastic. Yeah. Now, it's really difficult, but that's kind of what I call, like, the Ori and the Blind Forest problem, where, like, the art is so nice, you can't really establish where the platforms are. Really should call it a Donkey Kong Country problem, because it kind of predated this. But still, the sequel, you know who you play as in the sequel, Donkey Kong Country 2?
Just Diddy Kong?
You play as Diddy Kong and...
Dixie Kong?
Dixie Kong. What's up with that?
Where did Donkey Kong go?
Where is Donkey Kong?
The title is called Donkey Kong.
And it's called Diddy's Conquest, a little play on words. I always said Diddy's Conquest, but it's Diddy Kong's Quest.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, who do you play as in Donkey Kong Country 3, Kim? Would you like to guess, now that you get the trope here of what's going on?
Just Dixie Kong?
You play as Dixie Kong as the main one, and a new Kiddy Kong.
He's asking me because I've never played a Donkey Kong
never played.
game
She has no
in
idea.
my life.
She's never played these. But anyway, you get the idea. Like, so you're playing a Donkey Kong game, and you took Donkey Kong from, like, what are you doing? And then the next one, you take the next character who became my next trope, which was Diddy Kong. Like,
it would be really confusing if you were, like, pick up Luigi's Mansion, and now you're playing
as Mario. Yeah, that would, or like, it's like Super Princess Peach, but you knew that was coming. Like, you knew you were going to play as Peach.
Right.
And I think you actually rescue Mario and Luigi in that game. It's been a while.
That's fine. The name is in the title.
But exactly, like that but not like Donkey Kong Country 3. Surprise, you're actually playing as Dixie Kong and Kiddy Kong.
This next one takes up your entire... You can stop playing the game before you have to switch characters,
Nier Automata. Well, if you fall for the end credits, yes, you will just play as one character and you will be done with it. You will be unsatisfied. You will also be unsatisfied as you beat the game completely, but that's just my opinion. I don't like Nier Automata.
Did you do all three?
I did. Yes, for the record, I don't know if I said that in my video. I beat all 3. I beat everything in this game, just because I was like, everyone loves this. Why don't I like it? I don't understand. What am I missing? And the thing with Nier Automata is basically you play as 2B, everyone's favorite porn star, and you get to the end of the game, and you roll end credits, and the game not so subtly hints you should start the game over, and if you do, you actually play the same game again, but you're playing as, what was his name?
9S.
9S. I hate this freaking kid. He actually kind of ruined the main plot for me playing the normal game. And then you have to play the entire thing over as him, and then you have to do and then after you beat the game as him, you get a completely different game as a third. You play as 2B game.
And I don't even see this as like an Octopath Traveler thing. I see this as like you're gonna play as somebody else now. The
intention was a plot twist of surprise. You're gonna play as somebody else, but it was unappreciated. That's really what this is. Like, mostly like if you're going to make me play as somebody else, make it like a surprise. Like in No More Heroes 2. A surprise, you're gonna play as Henry, the final boss of the first game, and he's gonna be like super powerful, but unfortunately he's only in this one room. Or you're gonna play as another boss and like
you're gonna play as Sephiroth going up to Nibelheim. Like
yeah, right. Like do something fun. Don't like actually go out of your way to try and disappoint somebody, because that's really what that felt like. It felt like bad intentions. But we have one more thing we hate before we're gonna get to just goods.
Yeah, all of these really pain me. Like I hurt
I know.
thinking about these.
So this one I think is mostly a movie trope, but it still happens.
It is a big movie trope,
and I hate it so much.
An anime trope. Oh my gosh, I get so mad. I have a rule when you're watching anime or TV. Well, I guess I should read the twist or trope.
I want to know what your rule is. You're gonna forget.
Okay, no, I got my rule.
Okay,
so No, I'm going to say the twist first.
Okay, fine.
The twist is pretending to kill a character or magically bringing them back to life for no reason.
I hate this.
So my rule is, if you did not see them die on screen,
they're not dead.
They're not actually dead. It's like a Schrodinger's cat thing. Like,
yeah. Now, some of those actually wouldn't apply because you would think you saw their death, but you actually didn't. And this happens multiple times in the Uncharted series. And I actually wrote Uncharted, just to jump to Uncharted. And I'm not going to spoil anything in particular, like say names, but it's multiple characters. It's not just one. Though it's a trope that one in particular, like a running gag, that it just keeps happening to this one. Yeah, well,
then the gag's funny. Because
then it's funny, but then it happens again in 4 with a different character. And I'm like, come on.
Like, we get it.
Like, stop it. Like, nobody actually likes this. Like, Clover was just watching The Jungle Book, and this, like, is how they end. There's so many movies that end this way, but, like, even at the end of that movie, for absolutely no reason, you know, like, Shere Khan is fighting Baloo, and Baloo, they have this fake death and fake funeral, and he's just listening to them talk, and, like, it's supposed to be a joke. I'm like, no, stop. Like, why? You're just desperate for emotion, is really what it feels like.
So we should go ahead and list all the games that we were going to talk about. You already talked about Uncharted.
Skipped Uncharted. That's all we got to say about Uncharted.
Xenoblade 2, God of War, and once again, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my god. So yeah, we're going to be talking about these games. So
How about you get your Tears of the Kingdom one out of the way?
Well, that one actually is kind of new. How about I do God of War instead?
Okay.
So while we're waiting on the weebs
Let's get something from the PS2
don't want to be ruined to a game that is absolutely not worth their time, I will give you some time for Tears of the Kingdom. But anyway, so God of War, this is actually something that happens, like, in the main story, and I wanted to bring up this one in particular because it's different than the others. I don't hate this.
I don't hate it.
No, this is just, like, it made me question what was happening in the rest of the game, because in God of War, this is a very difficult game. You will die a lot, okay? So now
That's the joke.
Yeah, that's the joke. And, you know, in the main cutscenes of the canon of what's happening into your character, if your character suddenly dies, and instead of, you know, coming back to life and getting another shot, in the cutscene, they instead are sent to hell and have to fight their way out of hell. What happened when I was dying before? Like, you can't just be inconsistent like that.
Crawling. Oh my gosh, I love that when you finally make your way out of hell.
You crawl out of a grave. Yeah, like, oh yeah, I'm not saying I don't really love it. I mean, the problem is you absolutely died up to this point, unless you're like playing a deathless God of War game.
Like, I like the tropey gag and the Uncharted death thing. They even did it. They even did that in the movie too. And it's like,
okay, now since we warned about Uncharted, I can kind of say this. Like in the first game, for example, this is why I was trying to counter what your other thing was. If you don't see the body or see them dead, then they're not dead.
Right.
The first time this happens in Uncharted, a character, your companion character, is shot in the chest. You see them bleeding, and they fall down on their back, and you run away. You think they're dead, and later you find out they actually happen to have like a book like in their front chest pocket, and it like caught the bullet, but like the force caused them to bleed, and they fell over. So you thought they were dead, but actually they weren't, and like that's fine, but the fact that they go overboard with it and they start doing it constantly with this character, and later
then
they did it again.
Then it's funny, though, at that point.
I was just irritated. I was like, come on, stop it.
Okay, I'm going to talk about when I hate the most.
Oh, yeah? I'm not sure.
Xenoblade 2.
You say that because you didn't play Tears.
Well, I know the Tears of the Kingdom thing,
but it's the exact same thing.
Well, the thing is, I don't expect as much from Zelda as I expect from Monolith and Xeno.
Yeah.
So, like, when Xeno did it, I was
really disappointed. Yeah, Monolith should do better than this. Because, spoiler alert, the Xeno series is going to show up a lot in our best plot twist, which
they like plot twists, and they're usually very good.
They're usually very good. They're very twisty.
So, in Xenoblade 2, you get to the end, and this is big spoilers.
We already said that.
Okay,
yeah.
So Pyra and Mithra fuse back together and make Numa. Mm-hmm. Right? Am I saying that right?
Yep. 2 big titty ladies turn into another big titty lady.
And she does this whole, like...
Self-sacrificial thing. She pulls
like,
a Cosmos.
She's gonna die. Yeah, that happens in... well, you know, another Xeno saga.
Yeah, another Xeno. Yeah, it was a Xeno reference within that, but still.
So, and you're like, oh, okay, that really helped improve that game's plot.
I actually thought so. Yeah, I thought like had it ended where you basically fight the final boss and you're escaping, but the place that you're in is going to collapse, and the only somehow Pyra, Mithra, Numa has to stay behind while the group escapes. And you've heard this trope before, and they die while you're doing so. Well, that actually, I think, really helps their character because they just didn't have anything really giving them any growth at all. Throughout the entire game, they just didn't change.
What gave them growth is being in Smash Brothers.
Well, sure, yeah, and their plastic surgery. But I think what happened afterward completely ruined the entire thing, which was during the end credits, for absolutely no reason. I can't think of a single reason why this would happen. They both inexplicably come back to life, and now I want to remind you, they are, like in Smash Brothers, they are one character. They can switch between them like personalities, okay? They don't both independently exist, but they both independently show up for no other reason than, I can imagine, just to fulfill some FFM fantasies for Rex and all of the weebs playing the game who just liked it for the anime.
I hate it so much.
I hate it so much, because it not only ruined their self-sacrifice, it makes absolutely no reason, but it, like, destroyed the plot. It makes me so sad. Like the game was hurting already.
The secret ending of FF10-2 that I refuse to watch now.
Well, I don't know if refusing to watch is the way, but I mean, sometimes like accepting the tragedy is the
ruin the story.
Yeah, sometimes accepting like a tragedy is better than suddenly in Final Fantasy X-2. Why is Yuna just like, Tidus is dead. You know what? I'm gonna be a pop star. Ba-na-na-na, dancing with my homies and making lots of money. And that's the game? Like, I mean, okay, sure, if that's how she copes. I kind of want you to do,
if you could do a review of that game and change outfits every scene, I would love that.
Yeah, like in oh god, in the video, I just keep changing costumes. Oh god!
And to then make sure your nipples are barely covered each time.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, okay, moving on to...
It's an anime game. I don't have nipples.
The Legend of that. Well, no, if you're a female, you do. So moving on to Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
So you thought I was done griping about this game for bad plot twists? No, I'm not done, because at the very end of this game, you beat the final boss, and guess what? For absolutely no reason, the huge, once again, self-sacrificial thing that happens in this game gets completely undone. Even though the characters who told you there was no turning back from what had happened, I'm kind of trying to dance around this for you, they are the ones who actually fix it themselves for absolutely no reason. There is no justification for it given in terms of the lore.
I was like, whatever, I'm going to tell you spoilers for Xenoblade 2. You can tell spoilers.
Fine. It's a very new game, and people, like, I'm just saying, watch my review of this game, I will go into it in more detail, but you just know, I hate it. Don't pretend to kill a character or pretend that they're dead for good when you don't mean it. And you're going to magically bring them back for no reason. I don't feel happy or excited when you do this. If anything, I was more like, wow, they actually killed Zelda. There's the character. I can't believe they did this. Like,
that sounds good.
Like, wow, that's okay. Like, I was kind of like thinking kind of poorly of the game up to that point. I was like, wow, that's really ballsy of them. And honestly, I think it really helps the story out. You know, it hurts, but sometimes emotion is good for a story.
Yeah.
But they couldn't stick with it, and that's what ruins it.
This trope made me stop reading Get Backers. I was loving the Get Backers manga. I owned so much of it. Suddenly, they kill a main character that's been there since, like, volume 2. And then they're like, let's go bring him back to life. Why?
Yeah. Outrage to appease out. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it. And that's how the volume of that manga ended. They said, let's go set out on this journey. And I'm like, I don't want to buy the next one now.
You know, it's funny. We're going to have another iteration of... I wouldn't call it pretending to kill a character, but we'll get to it in the good stuff later. There is a good way to do this.
There is a good way to kill a character.
This is the bad way to do it. So these are our bad examples. But anyway, let's get to good stuff.
I'm excited to talk about the good stuff.
I like good video games.
It makes you feel... It just makes you feel.
It makes you feel, man.
I don't want to say good or bad because...
you play something and you get a good plot twist.
You feel so bad it's good.
Sometimes this is like the hook of a video game. You get something like really cool that you're like, oh, I'm in it now. Or like, what's going to happen next? Like, oh my god, I don't know what to do.
We're so emotionally void. We need this in our life.
Oh yeah, it's like regular people watch their freaking soap operas, and no, I'm sorry, I meant it for the video games. Give me the twisties.
That's too quick. Soap opera, it's every like, especially those Indian soap operas. Okay, it's like every like 3 or 4 minutes there.
Anyway, good plot twist. So once again, these are in no particular order. I have 10 of these to get through.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so we'll try and go a little bit quicker. So the first one is surprise content. Something you weren't expecting. You thought you were done with your game, but guess what? You have so much more game to have, and that is a wonderful twist. And the first one I want to talk about is the game I'm playing right now. It's Pokemon Gold and Silver. So there is other games that we're also going to mention briefly on here, so just to warn you, because I'm going to talk about the Pokemon one first, because that's, like, the least spoiler. No one actually is like, oh, I don't want to be spoiled to Pokemon Gold. Let me go out there and catch a cartridge of this game. I'm also going to talk about Donkey Kong 94, a Game Boy game as well. Sorry, I like old games. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and Portal 2.
Can we get anything newer?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
This is a very old list.
Well, this doesn't happen too much. Okay, so to be fair, I'll give you something brand new. So Tears of the Kingdom, this is actually a good thing. They, through all of their advertising, never showed you anything about the depths. And it's this enormous, huge extra map of tons of new content to your game you weren't expecting. That's good. Unfortunately, I hate what it adds to the game. It's just tons of extra grinding, and that's why I didn't put it on here. So anyway, Pokemon Gold.
Go.
So you basically, you expect in a Pokemon game on the Game Boy, you're going, or in any of them really, you're going to catch a bunch of Pokemon,
play the region,
go through the whole region, defeat 8 gym leaders, go to the Elite Four. On your way to the Elite Four, what you're thinking is the victory lap at the end of the game, a character stops you saying, do you realize what you just did? You just took your first steps into Kanto. Pull up your map and see. You pull up your map, and you're looking at the Kanto map from the first game.
I just want to let you know, I was not spoiled to this. Pokemon Heart Gold is the first game I had ever played, and Alex had to give it to me back in 2010.
I had to be very tight-lipped.
And I wasn't spoiled with this, and it was so exciting.
But even still, you didn't even play Gen 1. So imagine my excitement as a kid. I bought Pokemon, I played Red and Blue when they came out. And I thought they were outrageous, like, so good. And then I play the sequel, and the whole other first game is in here, surprise, in the end. You actually get to go get those other badges and fight the Elite Four again, and then there's a secret boss at the end of it.
It's excited feeling I didn't need to play the other games, because it's probably not a spoiler, but I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan.
Well, it's something that they've never even tried to do before. Like, just go above and beyond and make someone feel good for working this far. And that's something that Donkey Kong 94 does really well. So, what people were expecting on the Game Boy back in 94 was you're just playing something you're going to have like at your office and just like, you know, casually play like a little bit of Tetris. So people would say, okay, I want to play some Donkey Kong, because I played some in the arcade and it's a fun game. And the original Donkey Kong arcade has 4 levels. And you eventually, climb up a tower, you stop Donkey Kong, and you save Pauline the end of the game. And that is exactly what this game is. It gives you that verbatim. Except at the end of that, Donkey Kong grabs Pauline again and keeps running, and all of a sudden you have a huge map of levels. And you realize you thought you bought Donkey Kong, and you did. But you actually got this enormous game with tons of content, and it, like, blew people's minds with how much they were...
I can see that being a very old game like that.
Yeah, and... well, it's something like, yeah, you just expected to play a little arcade and you plug it into your Game Boy. But instead, you got effectively like a Super Mario World. Like, you turned, like, that concept into giant levels, and it was outrageous. It was huge. I don't think gaming can ever top Donkey Kong 94 in terms of surprise content. But
so,
we have 2 more to quickly talk about, and I know you're
quick. I'm trying to make sure keep moving on.
She keeps waving me rudely while I'm trying to. This is exciting stuff.
I know, but we've only got 40 more minutes to record, and I'm not sure we're gonna get through.
I know, I'm trying.
So surprise content I'd like to bring up is for Portal 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
for people who played Portal 1, they would think it's surprise content.
Exactly. If you've played Portal 1, it's a short game.
Yeah.
There's not much story to it. You're just trying to escape.
Break out, yeah. Defeat
and
GLaDOS,
so
the robot.
You start Portal 2, and you're playing it, and you're like, oh, it's the same thing again. We just gotta take care of GLaDOS and
a lot more
try
character,
to escape.
better
with more
music,
characters,
all that stuff,
music.
yeah.
You know, it's an upgrade.
And it does take you longer to get to that point to stop GLaDOS than last time. So it would fulfillingly feel like it was an actual sequel and it was bigger.
But as you're defeating GLaDOS, a Wheatley takes over.
The idiot companion with you the entire time. who was apparently programmed for stupidity, takes over and he becomes the new villain, and you're not even halfway by this point, I don't think.
No, it's very quickly into the game, and then you get knocked down to the lowest levels of aperture science.
Yeah.
So
and you like learn about their history, and there's so much. It's
so fun and gives you so much extra content and context to the game.
I think what's doing this plot twist is let the player feel satisfied with their purchase with exactly what they thought they were getting, and then just overwhelm them with even more.
You purchased Portal 2 after you've somehow gotten hold of Portal 1. It was not easy, I feel like, back in the day.
Nah, it was kind of all over the place. You're just thinking because I had it on a flash drive. It looks shiftily to the left and the right. I need that monkey
super
puppet
shady
shift.
Stuff.
I don't know where I got it, to be honest. I really don't. But no, you could have played it on all sorts of consoles and computer at the time. But anyway, so I have one more for this, and it is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I haven't gotten to talk about Castlevania very much in this.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't get to talk about Castlevania very much.
There's actually a few plot twists in this game.
It's like Zach's favorite franchise.
It might be Dragon Quest, I don't know. But anyway, so in Symphony of the Night, not only are you starting the game as Richter Belmont, you even storm up the castle and fight Dracula as a tutorial in the beginning.
This is another game. This was on our bad twist of surprise you're not playing.
The surprise you're not the main character, but it's actually kind of good.
This is done well.
This is done well. Because it's another main character who was already established and is really cool. So that's the thing. It's fine. Also, everyone would have known this going in.
Way cooler.
Nobody would have been fooled that they were playing as Richter.
He's on the cover, of course.
Yeah, I know. Of course not. But anyway, you start playing as Richter, and surprise, of course, you're playing as Alucard for the entirety of the game. You explore Castle Dracula. You go fight your final boss, who is Richter. Who is basically kind of being possessed, and there's an alternate ending you have to go above and beyond to save Richter, and the big extra surprise content is in the form that sure you can get your end credits and call it you beat the game, but the game will literally flip itself on its head, and all of the level design will be upside down, and you will play the whole game again through what they call the inverted castle, which is really clever. Now some people kind of complain that the game kind of slows down at this point, kind of gets kind of grindy, but the same kind of happens in Pokemon Gold. Those badges come really quickly, and it's really just the fact that you thought you were done, but no, you've got so much more to get through. Speaking of which, so do we. So we're going to move on to our next twist.
My next one, I don't know. I love this, and all three of these games we're about to talk about did it in drastically different ways.
This next one might be my favorite plot twist.
It's I love this
I don't know. Twist. This might be my favorite.
It makes you question everything.
So, the plot twist is, you're actually the antagonist. Bum, bum, bum. I can't even say it without the bum, bum, bum thing. So, unfortunately, these are kind of big spoilers, but I can say that...
These are huge spoilers.
Just even mention which game it is, because, obviously it's not like I could, just wait a bit.
If you would like to skip this section, it will be spoilers for Xenogears, Xenoblade Chronicles, and BioShock Infinite.
Yep, specifically Xenoblade Chronicles 1. So, yeah, I just think that this is something that you can't do very easily. This is probably the hardest to write.
Maybe we should mention the games and then mention the plot twist, because now I feel like we spoiled those games by saying the plot twist.
Oh, good point. Well, in this instance, yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, we warned you in the beginning there was going to be spoilers to stuff, so
here's more spoilers.
But still, even knowing those things, all three of these games are 100% worth playing.
And they do this I don't want to say trope. They do this plot twist in a drastically different way. Each one of them does.
Yes. Oh, well... yeah, I think so.
I would say
so totally to go in order, probably the oldest one of this list, well, no, absolutely the oldest one of this list, is Xenogears on the PlayStation 1, and oh my god, this is so cool. So, I don't know how to describe it too well outside of, you can watch my full review where I go over the story of this, but basically, your party in this JRPG is kind of being terrorized by this overwhelmingly powerful threat that only if you were very, very astute through paying attention to what was happening, you would have realized that your main character, Faye, was either incapacitated or knocked out during the time this character shows up. And they're in a completely different mech, they're overwhelmingly powerful, and apparently it turns out later that your main character suffers from multiple personality disorder. And when they are you're the protagonist. And
now
when
this is taking multiple personality disorder to the extreme.
Oh yeah, this is to be fair, if you know the full context of the character, his brain is goop. So I'm not surprised.
I'll make a list of characters whose brains are goop by
Yeah,
this point.
you just want to talk about Cloud. I know, but still, so it's
I don't know what's going on in there anymore.
This is one of the coolest twists in the game, and the thing is, the game is full of amazing twists, and it just keeps going. And something similar kind of happens in Xenoblade Chronicles. And I thought this was one that, and both of these really take a long time to learn about. As opposed to, like, Bioshock, which is kind of like the final boss terms, when you realize what was happening. Because by that point, gameplay-wise, you probably would have tried to break what was happening, because you're in a time loop.
Xenoblade Chronicles, the first game, I can actually put under several different...
Oh, yeah. That game is
twists.
constant plot twists, and honestly, this is one
and they're good.
Oh, yeah.
They're not bad.
So is Gears. They're both games that, like, if a story is so temptingly interesting that you want to neglect your side quests and pursue the main plot, that's Xeno. It will make you unintentionally neglect all sorts of things you're supposed to be doing on the side just because you are so invested in what's happening in the story.
So can you explain a little bit more of what Xenoblade Chronicle does?
Yeah, so in Blade, it's really complicated, but basically, you end up accidentally releasing a god who was sort of...
JRPG.
It's a JRPG. Yeah, but eventually you find out, like, God. Your body was apparently a reincarnation of the deities, and he was supposed to inhabit you. And you're just kind of the shell to be cast off and used for this god, which turns out to be an evil god. And so your whole party has to go...
A selfish god. I would say a selfish god.
He's kind of a dick. Yeah, but anyway, just leaving it at that, because it's huge when you get to that point, but the thing is, there were so many other twists.
But see, that's different. You're a shell for this antagonist that's going to come. Xenogears, you are that person, and you're changing into that personality.
It's almost like the same twist, but Bioshock Infinite
does it in a different way.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can do you're the main villain.
Throughout the whole game, you're Booker DeWitt in the game, right? So you're playing as this character, and you're on this mysterious island. You know, you're trying to save Elizabeth, is what you find out, and
from a city in the sky.
Let's
not make it look as a little less ridiculous as it actually is. It's
and
Bioshock is outrageous.
George Washington.
Oh God, I love it.
And the whole time, you know, the person who created this guy's name is Comstock, and you're trying to avoid them. And throughout the game,
kind of like this, like, alternate history, Confederate religious nut.
Yeah.
And he's like taken this whole community under his wing and has brought history in a different direction of extremists.
Eventually, big plot twist, you learn that
you're kind of him.
You are him.
You are him in a time loop.
Yes. And Elizabeth is actually your daughter, who you were trying to save from yourself, because the Comstock that you know went into the past and stole Elizabeth from you.
Yeah.
To take her to that time loop, and it's a ride.
I remember getting to the end of this game just like, what's happening? Like, oh my God.
You got to like the end scene, and we're like, hold on.
No, hold on. I wish I could pause. I gotta get a glass of water.
What?
Oh Lord.
And it's just like you weren't expecting it. There weren't really hints to it.
No, it really comes as a surprise. Well, you probably could have picked up on...
The biggest hint
who would expect that? That's the thing. Like, who would expect that?
Exactly. The biggest hint you have is that Elizabeth is missing part of her pinky finger. And you know the baby that was stolen at the beginning's finger... part of the finger's missing. So.
Right, your daughter. That's all you would have.
Your daughter. That's like all you have to work with. And then you get to
why would that tell you that Comstock is you in the future?
Hold on for dear life.
Or rather, the past.
It's the future.
It's a loop.
It's a loop.
It's a loop. Anyway, it's crazy. But we gotta move on. So here's the one that's an alternate twist on a previous a bad twist that we didn't like, and that is the death of a beloved character. You're never really expecting a game to, and I mean, like, go through with it. actually
Right.
actually kill a character who really means a lot to you, or is just important in terms of your gameplay.
But the games we're going to be talking about do it in two different ways.
We should mention the games first.
So spoilers, but also not spoilers.
Well, at this point, I think that you were right. The spoiler, or the plot twist itself, was the spoiler, and we should have read them in the wrong order. But this one, in the others, I don't
plot
think.
twist we should be saying in the opposite order. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII and Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Why are we talking about FF7, Kim?
I need
you
to
telling
talk
me
about
somebody
it?
dies in FF7? This is like you telling me that Bowser kidnaps Princess Peach?
Don't tell Aerith's new voice actor. Dear God. I think she just found out about it not too long ago.
Maybe not too long ago. I got a feeling that Rebirth might be playing up to that point. But
yeah, that's true.
We don't know. So anyway, I think she just kind of told you the character
Aerith
who may be
dies.
dying. Aerith is going to die. One of your party members, who you have for quite a while by this point. And to make matters even worse mechanically, she's your healer.
She's your white mage.
She's the
You
healer.
do not get a replacement white mage, by the way.
However,
I was very pissed.
I know, but however, the materia system in FF7 makes it so that everyone is everything.
That's true, but
So-
she has the best MP for that.
Yes.
So it's
Yes, she was your best healer.
So I remember when I first played this game. Keep in mind, I played this game a very long time ago, and I'm playing it again now. And I remember playing it, and I got to that point where Aerith dies. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, running out to my dad because, I played the video game with him, and I'm like, what if I use a Phoenix down?
Just thinking anything.
I'm like, what if I restart my save from earlier and we try to do that again?
Unfortunately, you weren't the only one to have that thought. There's a lot of other people like, why didn't we just use a Phoenix down? Or cast Raise?
But my main thought was, I'll go to an earlier save and I'll try again. Because I thought maybe there were alternate ways you could get around it or something.
Yeah, thinking that games weren't forcing you into one.
So, my dad had to talk me down
Explain
that
to
Aerith
you.
is dead and I have to live with that. And I'm like, 10? Maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
9?
I was much older than 10 when I had this similar twist in Xenoblade Chronicles
Maybe I was
3.
12. Maybe I was 11 or 12, but yeah.
Still. In Xenoblade 3...
This broke me, and I didn't even play it.
I actually did not even talk about this at all in my review for Xenoblade 3.
Well, now it's spoilers time.
Well, yeah, now it's spoilers time. So, you get to a point in the game where the antagonists, they are other incarnations of two of your main characters, Noah and Mia.
Spoil! You have to.
I'm trying to figure out how to even say it
But
properly.
it also kind of
Okay.
falls into the bad twist of pretending to kill a character and bringing them magically back to life, but that's not
this
exactly what happened.
This is a two for twist.
This is a different...
It's a 2 for 1. So, basically, these two characters have sided with the main villains and decided to become immortal, and are trying to keep the entire world in a stasis where
And
it cannot
you're
move.
you're
trying to break this, which you're fighting yourselves. And
in another weird time loop.
So yes, in another weird time loop. So these villains N and M are, Noah and Mio are trying to stop your party from getting away with what they're doing. So they capture you, and to further torment you, they decide when they realize that Mio's time is about to run out, she's about to die. Naturally, it's kind of how the world works. I'm not going to get into that. They decide to lock you up and force you to wait until she dies and make your main character, Noah, send her and kill her himself. Just because these people are dicks. And throughout this, and it is an excruciating scene to wait through. This is your first vocal
Noah
song.
banging on the the
smacking
bars,
the bars
that's
till his
all
knuckles
I can think about.
are
I'm
blood.
I am dying.
Oh god.
And they separate her into a different
she's not even allowed to
cage,
wait
too.
in the
She's
same
not even
cell.
with the rest of the party. So.
All she can do is watch the phases of the moon until
and they
she dies.
got a vocal track going, and it is hard.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. But you finally get to the scene where Mio is dying, and you really do think she's dead. You watch her go. Until afterwards, you realize that the immortal version of Mio, M, actually really didn't like what had happened to N over all this time, how he's changed. She has seen this in him, and she wanted to shake him up and also let go of what had happened and finally die herself. And finds a way to basically body swap just like in really She Freaky Fridays Mio, and
which you learn she has this power.
That was her ability.
A previous,
yeah, it's not like this was out of nowhere.
Right.
She had this ability. She was using it on you in combat. So yeah, she does this on Mio on purpose so that she is sent instead and gives Mio her time. And so that way, gameplay-wise, you actually don't lose your character like in FF7. You keep Mio on your team, which you kind of needed her because you fuse and use an Ouroboros form. And like it was devastating. I was watching this like, what am I gonna do? But no, you actually get her back. But at the same time, like it's this double punch because like. Oh, you have to deal with watching this character die, and you have to, like, slowly just trudge through it, and it is painful. I feel like
we almost need to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 1 as well at the very beginning of that game doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's kind of pretending to kill a character, but it really, like...
No, she died.
Yeah, you're right. She is dead. Anyway, it happens again there. I don't want to keep spoiling too much of these games, because they're outstanding. You get the trope. You go what it is. You see what we're saying. Yeah, the beloved character is defeated or just killed. But the thing is, that happens really early in Xenoblade 1.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm saying, like, beloved characters,
but
and
the twist
by this point, you are attached to them. The twist on that one was a double twist, because the character, they do die.
Talking about these is rough.
It's hard. So, we gotta move. So, here's
another
one.
Wait, all right. Okay. Wait, should I read the games first? And then
I'm sorry. We should read the games first.
Okay. So the games you're going to be talking about for this plot twist.
This next twist
is Metal Gear Solid.
Whoa.
BioShock.
Whoa.
Last Story.
What's that?
And Dark Souls.
I love Last Story. I wrote that on here. I'm sorry.
I love that we keep having reoccurring games coming up like Metal Gear, BioShock, Xeno.
Yeah, and some are on good and the naughty list.
This twist is you've been manipulated all along.
Whoa, yeah, this is something that you can do very poorly, but luckily we're going to talk about ways that it was done really well, and different ways where you're just surprised, like, what?
Maybe we could go a little quicker about this one. I was trying to be as quick as I could with the FF7 because everybody knows that.
So basically, like, there's a lot of subversions and lying and deceit in Metal Gear Solid, but the biggest one is, in my opinion, the later half of the game where you are on a quest basically to stop the terrorists from being able to launch a nuke by shutting down Metal Gear Solid Rex, or Metal Gear Rex.
This is like the meanest manipulation.
This is just freaking cruel. This is just dirty. So you have this character with you who is another twist we'll get to later. And they are speaking with you, and they tell you, okay, we have this key card. We know that it has something to do with temperature. You go to different temperatures to change the temperature of this card, which change its shape, which inserted back in this area. Back at Metal Gear Rex, it's this kind of tedious backtracking segment, but you go through it to deactivate the whole thing. You go through it and you finally do it, and you just activated Metal Gear Rex, and it's turning on. You're like, what is going on? Why is it activating? And at this point, you realize, oh, by the way, you've kind of been lied to this whole time by the terrorist and tricked because they actually couldn't figure out how to activate Rex. They were having empty threats of saying, that, oh, they're going to launch a nuke. They couldn't do it. But because you came along and you tried to stop them, you accidentally just did it.
There's so many plot twists in Metal Gear Solid.
I love that one. That's so good.
So the next one we're going to talk about is BioShock. And this game is... The original one is also very twisty.
So twisty.
I really wanted to play like that little Detective Pikachu clip at the beginning of this.
This is another one of those twists that's like, it's so well done, you want to play the whole game again and listen to, like, with new knowledge.
Yeah, with new knowledge. So,
would you kindly explain to them what this twist is?
Well, now I don't want to because you said that. So, what's his name at the beginning of the game? It's not Fontaine. You were talking to Fontaine.
Okay, I'm gonna do this much faster.
Go.
I said it like that, and you intentionally tried to break the mind games there. So apparently, you find out very late in the game that a character who has been, you think, assisting you this whole time has actually been controlling you, because you don't remember it, but you have actually gone through a bunch of psychological conditioning. Whenever you hear a key trigger phrase, and that phrase is "Would you kindly," you must obey what has been told to you. And you learn of this in a forceful manner as a character forces you to do something you don't want to do, and it hurts. Ooh. And you have to do something that you don't want to do because you were told, would you kindly? And you have to do it in gameplay because the game will not progress unless you do it. So it's like a double twist, like a trick, like a video game thing.
I'm glad you said this, because you said it a lot quicker than I could, because I feel like there's so many other twists to
There
talk
is
about.
so much more to it, but once you know that, and you play the game again, and you start listening, and you're like, oh my gosh, they were saying it all over the place. Like, oh, that's why I went this way. That's why I did this thing. Like, you wouldn't think otherwise, because you trusted this character as a player, as a video game player, but you didn't realize, like, you as a physical character in the game were being manipulated and forced to do these things, and had no free will.
Well, now you've also got to talk about the last 2 games on here, too.
I do. So, the last story, I didn't really know where to tie this one in. This is a Nintendo Wii game that actually doesn't get a lot of praise, and it should, because it's effectively another Final Fantasy game.
Right? Project Rainfall?
Operation Rainfall Operation Rainfall brought this, Xenoblade Chronicles and Pandora's Tower, from only being in Japan only, I think, and brought them over to the West. And got them voiced with British voices, which is why the Xeno series still has British voices to this day.
Well, now you can't break the tradition.
Yeah, now you can't break tradition. They just have British voices.
Yeah, but Xenosaga doesn't, so maybe their next iteration won't. I don't know.
But anyway, this is one of those Final Fantasy-esque stories where like you part ways with some of your party multiple times. You guys split up, you do different things all the time, and you kind of meet back up again. Well, your not biological, but relationship-like brother character you've had for the entire course of the game slowly has less and less time with you as time goes on, and eventually, when the very final encounter shows up, swoops in to try and steal ultimate power and join you, and thought that you were coming with them, and you have to fight them as the final boss. Because by this point, you've grown to accept more family as the rest of your party and a bunch of other reasons. And they're also kind of evil. But at the same time, knowing the upbringings of you and this other person, the difference between you is that they didn't have this huge, like, character shift that you did. And, like, getting a chance to grow with other people. And you're actually getting to, like, really fight against the old version of yourself. And it is tragic. And once again, you've been manipulated. He thought he was doing this with you the whole time, even though you were kind of growing away from it and growing into a better person, and you kind of forget about what was happening. And it's like another version of that manipulation that gets you into the very end of this. It's really great. I have one more to talk about, and Kim's once again like, hurry, hurry, hurry. I want to talk about Dark Souls very quickly, because I had to talk about this. One of the greatest games ever. By the way, can we talk about Super Metroid, the final boss trick in Super Metroid? It's a great plot twist. Anyway, let's move on. So, Dark Souls. I'm serious, though, it is a plot twist. It's great. But in Dark Souls, so you realize you've actually been manipulated throughout the entire game after ringing your bells and doing things that you're supposed to do just to progress your video game.
With the scenario of this game, though, you almost expect to be manipulated by everybody under the sun.
I guess, but this is like such a dirty trick. So all you really have hope for is to end this curse that has been inflicted upon humanity that makes the undead come back to life. And so you go about doing this. You think you're on some righteous quest, and you're sent to this glorious city of Anor Londo. You fight through like crazy hordes to get there. You're sent there by this primordial serpent, who's actually really creepy. But you fight through there, and you get to this point. And if you are dirty enough to get to this big titty lady Guinevere and attack her, even though she praises you on this holy quest and grants you the Lord vessel that you've come for, if you attack her, you realize she was an illusion. And everything you'd been doing was a trick to try and have some undead go through all this work to try and perpetuate the Age of Fire because it benefits the gods. And the gods were lying to you. And everything you've been doing was just for them. And it doesn't benefit humanity at all. The end!
Well,
I love it.
I was going to talk about it earlier, though, too, because you had talked about Metal Gear Solid, and I'm like, we didn't even talk about Metal Gear Solid 2.
No.
Talk about being manipulated the whole time.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that is so cool. Both of which, Metal Gear... Actually, all three of those. Metal Gear Solid 2, and Dark Souls. You can watch me play on my channel completely. Beginning to end. Shameless plug. Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
Okay, so Cubed. The next one...
Yes.
Oh, I can talk about this one a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was mostly me.
Okay, so this next one, we're going to be spoiling Xenoblade, Xenosaga, Code Vein, and God Eater.
Well, not really. You got your time. Okay, you could pause if you really cared. So what it is connecting to another series canonically.
That is so exciting when you realize what's happening.
Yeah, like, surprise, you're in this game universe kind of thing. So what she was kind of saying there was those series are actually connected in a way that you didn't realize. And can I do the shorter one first? The second one, so you can talk the longer one? Yeah. So I was playing Code Vein, silly me, and just wanted to play another Dark Souls game. Even though I played this before Dark Souls, believe it or not. It's pretty good. But, I play far enough into it, and by the end of this, you get some cutscenes that explain, like, what's it like on the outside world. It's really a Souls-like, just think of a Souls-like kind of game.
So, like, also in Code Vein, I guess you could say that you've been, like, secluded or like quarantined?
Very much quarantined from the outside world, and you're kind of vampires, but not really. Everything in name of vampire.
You're definitely a vampire.
Yeah, you drink a lot of blood. But anyway, you know that the outside world is apocalyptic, and you don't go there. That's all you know. And this is very much hidden in the game, that this is in the universe of another game. But you get a cutscene showing something in the outside world, and I forget the name of the monster, but it's like the main baddie of God Eater Resurrection, which is 1. Like, being, like, attacked and shot down by something. And, of course, like, brand new graphics. That's a PSP game. Now, of course, it's also owned by Bandai Namco. But I'm looking at it like, whoa! I'm playing this like, what do you mean? I'm in the God Eater universe? It was like, well, this didn't even, like, give me the impression that I was. But if this is the future...
I remember when you were playing it, and you were watching it, and you're like, that's a God Eater creature. I was like,
hold on, I know that thing. I identified that thing.
I mean, luckily you had played God Eater, so you got that.
Yeah, luckily,
thing,
like, that actually I had played beforehand, and I was like, oh my god, I know that thing.
And okay, so in the next one, if you were
really cool when that happens.
If you were lucky to have played Xenosaga
and all of the Blade series, and then played the DLC of Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed. Which,
well, I say if you were fortunate enough to play Xenosaga, because there is only one way to play Xenosaga, and that is on a PS2.
Or by some nefarious computer means.
And especially if you were lucky enough to play Xenosaga 3, which costs way too much money right now.
Yeah, and beat it. You would have seen at the very end of it
that Cosmos,
your beloved main character
thing again, gets shot out into space until
she's a
the
cyborg.
Universe, right? So she's not really dead, but
it's because she is a torso and one arm and a head by this point, I think.
Right. So
no, she is floating in space.
And you've broken off her connect. I don't know if you've broken off her connection to the Zohar or not, but
maybe I'm not sure.
But so you'll see that she's floating around in space. She's a cyborg, and
the end credits are going by during this.
The end credits, like, you're out there until the universe may need you again, kind of thing.
Right. So, which is kind of Monolith saying goodbye to the character forcefully, because this series was supposed to be 6 episodes long, and they had to make it 3 because of sales.
And that's why it's so jarring between all 3 of the games, I feel like.
Yeah, they had to pull a Xenogears thing and tell the story faster.
Very jarring.
They had to do this.
And now if you've gone through and you've played all of Xenoblade, and if you're playing Xenoblade Chronicles...
Which you would think is completely different.
Well, but you're also thinking it's the Xeno name, and if you know Monolith, and you've played those games, you're like, man, I keep seeing the Zohar icon everywhere in Xenoblade.
I just expected... Ooh, you see it in
Gears,
just
like,
too.
An homage.
It's their thing.
It's an homage to their old game, and you think something like that. And then you get to the end of Future Redeemed. And I kept thinking, maybe these universes are related, because at the end of Xenoblade 1, you kind of get a clue as to what's going on.
Yeah, actually, I had theorized that in my Xenoblade 1 review, which came out before Blade ever happened. Or Blade 3, God, I'm sorry.
Blade 3.
Before Blade 3 ever happened, and I was implying that I'm pretty sure the end of this game is supposed to give you a hint that this is all happening in the Xenosaga universe, but there's no evidence. It just looks like it. People are wearing uniforms that kind of look like it, but there was so hard-looking stuff in it anyway.
It wasn't really connected. There wasn't a strong connection.
You'd have no reason to believe it. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because these are owned by separate companies. Nintendo owns Xenoblade. They picked up Monolith after Bandai Namco
created by the same team.
Yes, same
owned
team,
by different companies.
Different companies.
Xenogears, Xenoblade, and Xenosaga are all owned by different companies.
Unfortunately.
But
yeah.
Are they connected?
In Future Redeemed, you play through this whole story, which is actually a prequel, even though technically it's kind of a sequel. Xenoblade 3 is really trippy. But anyway, it's really timey-wimey. But you're playing through your whole regular fantasy RPG with your characters, and all of a sudden you get sucked into this giant machine, and you're suddenly in a rural suburb
area?
All the characters are looking around like, what's this? You've seen nothing but magical monsters this whole game, this whole series, and now they're standing in like a street, and they have no idea like
right,
what's a mailbox,
street signs,
yeah,
like house. They're like, what are these?
Then they see a city for the first time, and it's really weird. And one of the buildings they see is the Sky Tower. I forgot what it was called, the Ever Tree or something like that in Xenoblade 2.
Mm-hmm.
And during the course of this regular plot continues, and they realize they are inside of basically a simulation of the memory of this computer. The computer that is holding the world together. Okay. Long story short.
I got to talk about
something happens in the background, and I actually had to tell Kim about this, even though she was like, no, I want to play all those games in order first. I'm like, no, you need to know about this first, because something might get announced soon.
I'm a huge Xenosaga fan.
Yeah.
So
what's in the background?
Okay, you're going up, and in the background, the characters are talking over this. It's just kind of something offhanded. Plot's happening. You look at this radio.
Well, you hear a radio.
You hear a radio, but you're like,
yeah, like telling you the weather and things like that.
Right, exactly, and you don't really hear too much of it. And then we zoom in on the radio, and you see a very familiar logo. If you played
to very few people,
Xenosaga. It's UTech, or is it? It's a Vector. It's the Vector logo.
It's the Vector logo.
So you see the Vector logo, and then suddenly
a huge company from Xenosaga.
They
own everything.
You're working for them at the beginning of Xenosaga.
Yes. Yeah.
So as you're listening
Cosmos
to
is
the
a product
radio,
of Vector.
Right. She probably has the Vector logo on her somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
So you notice the radio is Vector, so they make everything.
And this is only if you're paying attention to not the main plot.
Right.
Because you're not and of course you're probably flabbergasted by the fact that where your characters are and you want answers and you're not listening to the background. This is only for people who are listening to the background. Because when I figured this out, I just started like running around the room like, oh my god, what does this mean?
Then you're listening to the radio and not main plots.
Sure.
And they do a name drop of a huge name from Xenosaga.
Dmitry
Yuriev.
Yeah, by that point, I remember double taking like, because I actually didn't notice the logo the first time. I was like,
right.
Dimitri, what?
Like you recognize the name before you recognize the logo.
Then I was like, hold on, guys, could you stop talking for a moment? What's going on the radio right now?
And then you actually listen to the radio, and they're actually talking about a very political thing that is happening in Xenosaga about the ownership of robotic body parts and organ harvesting. It's like it's
like
huge
the morals
plot.
of it,
right? Like the morals of it, and trying to create a bill against it and things like that.
Things
and
that
you're just
would
like,
become things later, because
excuse me?
This would have to have happened before Xenosaga, because we're in a memory, in a recreation.
Okay, so then technically you kind of fast forward then to the end of Xenoblade 3.
Well, no, this is still the end of Future Redeemed.
Okay, so I don't know where this lies in the time.
This next thing. So, after you beat the final boss, I'm not going to spoil any of that. Play it yourself. It is outstanding. So you get this end credits scene, and it's so well done. It's another vocal track.
I'm gonna say this at least. One of the big things you know about Xenosaga is that there is a missing planet that you have never found.
We should have mentioned that. Yeah, in Xenosaga, there's a missing planet called Lost Jerusalem. Lost Jerusalem is Earth. They just call it this because it is so lost, their home planet, basically of that all of life.
Xenosaga takes place 4,000 years in the future from now.
It's so far, they have actually lost the records of everything about this. They don't know where it was in space. It has vanished, and they don't understand why.
There's a lot of religious references in Xenosaga that are confusing to them because they don't know what the religious context was.
We need to hurry up with this plot twist because we have so much more to do. But anyway, so long story short, this planet has vanished, and this actually never resolves in Xenosaga. And I never really thought about this until I watched the ending cutscene of Xenoblade Future Redeemed.
I just thought whatever happened to it is
in which the world of, and this is what was happening in Xenoblade 1 and 2 and 3. These two worlds from Xenoblade 1 and 2 are finally going back together again and forming this missing world, which was Earth. It actually forms back together again in the end credits. And
universe.
You actually see Earth form back into nowhere in this vacuum of space. And all of a sudden, it's just brought back together. You get a nice view showing from the planet, looking out into the atmosphere. Lost Jerusalem is finally here again. And we know it's Lost Jerusalem because we already have established we are actually in the Xenosaga universe. But that's not all. While you're watching this, the very final seconds, a little blue speck starts glowing and falling towards the planet.
So just that connection that I craved for so long.
They did not forget.
Happened, and I feel like they're not ever going to connect to Xenogears, but at least
I hope
Matthew
they
looks
do.
like Faye, and I can live with that. It's just like an homage.
Yeah, it's an homage. Oh yeah, he fights exactly the same.
So yeah, that's our big plot twist.
However,
for that. I am
if you
sorry,
didn't pick up on it, yeah, that the speck falling is Cosmos finally falling back to Lost Jerusalem, implying that the series is going to not only tie itself back to Xenosaga, and I think what's best about this is it implies that they're going to go forward with this new, like, this whole thing was like this giant grand plan, and they'd known they were going to do this the whole time.
So I'm excited for whatever the next iteration of Xeno is.
Whew, anyway, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, I like plot
twists.
Those
are my podcasts I want to make. I want to make a Witcher one, and I want to make a Xeno one.
Yeah, but
just talk about it.
But surprise, you're in another game universe you didn't think you were in. Because, well, you didn't think this one because of the rights. Like, Bandai Namco owns God Eater and Code Vein, so I wasn't too shocked.
Okay, yeah.
But this was nuts. But anyway...
Square Enix owns Xenogears. Bandai Namco owns Xenosaga. And then Nintendo owns Xenoblade. So that's a mess. Okay, so the games that we're going to be talking about this time is Final Fantasy X, Xenosaga.
Hey, like we like Xeno
I
games.
love talking about Xeno games. And Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger, I played that.
And the plot twist is, you're not the main character.
What? So this is, I think, the better way to do that twist that we complained about of the bad ones, where, like, surprise, you're going to play as somebody else now.
Yes.
This is more, you're still playing as that person, but you realize through playing the main story, the story's not actually about you. That is a much more clever way of doing it, because then you actually get to tell a really well-done story where your character is almost just, like, coming to terms with the fact that, you know, in a JRPG, all three of these, you're not this, you know, chosen one ultimate warrior who is going to slay God and save the world.
A little bit in Xenosaga, but it's kind of like a thing. It's
not
like
really.
Okay.
You're basically an engineer in Xenosaga.
So let's talk about FF10 because I love FF10.
You love Xenosaga too. I mean, whatever.
You get to talk about the being manipulated one. I get to talk about this.
Okay. All right.
So in FF10, you know, you're Tidus, you get flung back into the future, and then you pass, and you meet some people, and yada, yada, yada. And you pretty much find out that the world does not revolve around you. Nobody cares that you have come from the future, or believes you that you, or comes from the past, and nobody believes that you came from the past.
And it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter!
You see the introduction, and you're like, wow, I am some super special character who's going to stop this final boss, who actually ends up being your father, and that doesn't even matter.
Not even important in this
Not
story.
even that matters.
Your main character of FF10 is Yuna. Like, you are watching her emotional journey of learning that everything she thought was the real thing and everything she had worked for her entire life has now completely changed, and she's figuring out the truth and going through the views of all that and just going through this emotional ride, and you are there the whole time to support her. With
fake laughter.
And I was going to bring that up. If you do not know the context of that scene, it's actually a very heartwarming scene.
It's a really sad scene.
It's a very sad and heartwarming scene, but to the rest of the internet who maybe didn't play it, it was
used as a meme because it was funny, but yeah, it's funny out of context. In context, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, so anyway. It's I think you were definitely not the main character of that game. Also, Yuna is the one that's like in the logo, so
yeah, it's really all about her. And that's fine, and especially because you realize that it's your relationship with Yuna that is what's driving the whole story.
Changing her and forcing her to.
And when your main character actually dies by the end, when you are gone, you know that when she is persevering, your play of the game is a legacy of what you have impacted on her, not what you have done.
So when your main character dies and you're watching the final cutscenes, it's all about the changes that Yuna is trying to make in her world, not about what's happened to you in the past. Mm-hmm. So
this kind of thing has happened in other games before, luckily in good ways. I want to mention Chrono Trigger before you get to Xenosaga, because just give you a little bit of a breather there.
Okay, fine. We'll get off the PS2. Whatever.
No, we're still... But hey, technically, if you really want to go back to it, Xenogears was supposed to be a sequel to Chrono Trigger. So, I mean, I'm kind of in the same series.
And Chrono Trigger was supposed to be FF7,
It was it was pitched, yeah, it was... Actually, I think, no, hold on.
Was it Xenogears that was supposed to be
Xenogears was pitched to be FF7.
Okay.
Though I think Chrono Trigger was pitched to be a Final Fantasy game. I don't remember which one, though. But anyway, so... Chrono Trigger, you started very similarly to Tidus, actually. You are flung back in time, and you uncover like this crazy story where you're trying to save this girl who was kidnapped by like this kingdom, and you're like it's really weird. Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of hard to describe. But while you are trying to save this character and bring her back to her correct time period, because she is being mistaken for someone of her time period, you kind of come into contact with another character, Frog. And Frog ends up, like, helping you as this knight, trying to do the right thing. And you realize later, throughout, playing the rest of the game, and you progress through the story, more and more stuff is more important to Frog than you. Your importance kind of stopped at the beginning where you just went back in time. And sure, like, you learned some magic back in time, and you can use a sword. But other than that, like... You get, like, the ultimate sword in the game, and it's, like, literally spelled out as, like, the sword for the chosen one. In any other game, it would go to your main character. Frog holds it. And not only that, like, Frog has, like, this huge redemption arc where he goes through, and it's an optional redemption arc, where you can even recruit the character who cursed him. After, like, getting, like, his own forgiveness. Like, it's this huge thing, and it's not about you. And it's so cool. And also, he can even be the one to come back and save you later in another plot twist we will talk about later, I think. Yeah, we will.
So I actually do want to talk about, you can do this plot twist very poorly as well.
Yeah, well, we kind of did.
And it's not...
With, like, the Metal Gear 2 thing. And...
It's not even just that. It's... If you've played FF8, you've seen this go horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. So, FF8, the story revolves around Rinoa, but you're playing as Squall, and if you've played the English translation of it...
Oh, yeah.
Yet I cannot stand Rinoa. She makes you go all over the world, and it doesn't even make sense. And
we don't have time for this.
It's a bad version of that. So, when it's done really well, we also get... Xenosaga again.
Xenosaga number 1.
So Xenosaga episode 1, you are playing as Shion, a Vector.
You're just an employee,
coworker. Yeah.
I mean, you're like management level, but that's it.
Yeah, you are management level. That is very true.
Also, another fun twist on it: you're female. There's a lot of these old JRPGs where you're male, like big, strong dude with sword and magic and all that. She is like, there is no magic. There's nothing special about her. She is just an employee.
She's just an employee. I mean, she is ether, but like everybody has ether.
Right.
In this game, so it's not like something magical about you. Yeah. But you've been on this project, the Cosmos project. And so you eventually...
You're developing the real
You're developing the actual main character who is Cosmos.
A robot.
Now, the fun part about this is when you're playing that game, you can pick who's the party member that you see running around, so I always switched it to Cosmos. But you realize that Cosmos is the real, like, main character of this game, and you're helping her to develop and become, like...
It's your job.
Sentient,
yeah,
almost.
It is literally your job as the caretaker.
And, Shion gets a little bit more importance when you get to Xenosaga 3, but it's still Cosmos that's driving this whole... all of it.
Right.
Like, all of the story Cosmos is driving. It's all about story. For her, she gets thrown in a dumpster at one point, and you gotta go fish her out because you can't throw away the main character.
Alright, so we're gonna try and speed up a little bit here because we have some more to get through. So I'm gonna name the games really quick for the next one. Metal Gear Solid, The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls, which I'm sure you all played and loved because it's one of the best games ever. Persona 5, Metroid Dread, Catherine, Shovel Knight, and Witcher 1. Whew! Okay, so since we have so many that have done this, we're going to try and do it quickly instead of, like, explain the entirety.
Well, you want to explain what the twist is real quick?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're going to do this quickly. Okay. We're going to just talk about a villain in disguise.
Oh, that's so fun.
Isn't this fun? When, like, you have a well-written... See, this is the opposite of a character pulling a 180.
Right.
Like, where you have a character who's well-written and was secretly there the whole time. So in Metal Gear Solid, you think you're talking to Master Miller, this character who you are taking the word for of a character who is supposed to be like a mentor to Solid Snake. Where it turns out later, over your codec, it was actually the main antagonist, Liquid Snake.
who looks like the cover of a romance novel.
Right. Did you like my sunglasses? But an alternative version of this, like a total flip on this, Villain in Disguise in The Frog from the Bell Tolls. I do review this for a full story, by the way. And you're looking for the princess of this land that you've come to, and it turns out that the princess was actually in hiding and was pretending to be the local witch. And you thought this whole time she was like cursing you and causing you problems. She was actually aiding you on your quest. Like in hindsight, you realize all of this, and she'd been helping you this whole time and kind of putting you up against moral tests to see which of these princes that have come to save her was the most worthy of her hand.
How would you say that? Like, heroine in disguise?
Well, the thing is, like, she was the villain. Like, right. You thought she was the villain, but it's like, she's not the villain. Like, that was, like, the opposite of that. However, yeah, I'm gonna... Wow, we have so many of these to do.
Okay, so Persona 5 could have also fallen under you've been manipulated all along.
Yeah.
So, eventually, so in Persona 5, you have the Velvet Room where you get your personas, and you see a familiar character, Igor, who you've seen in all of, except for the first 2 Persona games.
Right, I think he's in 3, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he shows up in 3.
I'm going to say 3 first. So,
I don't
Igor,
remember a sprite
familiar face, you know who it is, you know what to expect, you're going to get your personas here, you're going to go about your business, he gives you this power, and you eventually figure out that it's actually the god you need to kill, Yagamoth.
Yeah, he's just a dick.
He's just been manipulating you this whole time.
Gods in the Shin Megami Tensei series are not nice.
No. And he's been manipulating you this entire time, and has actually trapped Igor and split...
yeah, it's a really cool one. So. And the best part is...
the voice acting?
The voice actor has actually switched for this, which no one would have really thought anything of, because in I think it is in Japanese. The Japanese voice actor had passed away.
Yeah, it's Japanese only.
So, but in English, they replicated this with a new voice actor, just so that when the voice actor changes. But the thing is, the voice actor changed because this was a different character. And then when you restore Igor, you actually bring the original one back. You actually are speaking to the original voice actor, who they cleverly repurposed old lines in order to get him to communicate with you. That is really cool. That's really cool.
And the next one of your favorites.
Metroid Dread. So, you find out towards the end of the game that the computer that has been talking with you this whole time...
been manipulated all along.
...was actually the main villain. And you were actually so deep underground you couldn't reach your computer. And you were actually... Because you should have really picked up on this in the first cutscene. You're going down in this huge elevator, and you're, like, statically losing contact with Adam, your computer. And then he's crystal clear once you get to a terminal. And you're like, oh, okay, I established a connection. No, you established a connection to Ravenbeak, the main villain, who... God.
Great stuff.
I love that. So, Catherine is your next one.
Catherine! Okay, this, I feel like it's a little bit too villains in disguise.
It's sort of.
So, the Catherine...
It's also a random supernatural twist, kind of.
It is a random supernatural,
but I like this one.
You expect it to...
I called this one, and I call it in the actual episode itself, too.
In... Catherine C, we'll call her. You eventually find out that she's actually a succubus trying to manipulate you to cheat on your girlfriend and get sucked into this nightmare dream world.
Yeah.
Which you eventually find out one of the gods running the place is actually the bartender of your favorite bar, Stray Sheep.
Isn't that great?
And you fight him in the end, and it's really funny if you decide to go with the Catherine C route.
Oh, there's a ton of alternate endings of what you can do.
If you go with the true Catherine C route, you eventually become, I guess, an incubus yourself.
Yeah, it's great.
And you actually get, like, buddy and put down the god that you were fighting against in the final cutscene.
Right.
So... That's just a funny little villain in disguise. Like,
anyway.
He takes off his glasses and his eyes are red, and you're just like, I've barely talked to this bartender. How is he the...
Oh, you didn't talk to him enough then.
Villain.
Similarly to the Frog from the Bell Tolls twist, something happens just like that in Shovel Knight. You're effectively trying to go on this huge quest, stop this evil empress that is, taking over the land, on top of searching for your long-lost, I believe, love, Shield Knight, who ends up being, in a twist, that final boss. So once again, it's like the villain in disguise was actually this other character who you were trying to find. I don't remember, like, that one actually shocking me, though. I was like, well, yeah. that was something I was like, well, of
It
course.
was still fun.
No, like, if anything, I was actually shocked. Frog Fruit and the Bell Tolls got me. I totally didn't see that coming. Like, you fight the final boss, and, like, they're like, where's the princess? Like, they're not there. But anyway, moving on. So the next one I have here, the last one of this Villain in Disguise, just some examples of Witcher 1. This is super clever because it's actually using a time loop mechanic. Kind of, it's a time travel twist.
And also, you wouldn't know about it unless you were digging around. I guess.
To figure out this twist. This is, and I fully explained this in the episode I reviewed this game. So if you want to hear more information on it, please check that out. But basically, at the very end of the game, if you loot the corpse of the final boss, you will learn that they were another character who you were caring for as a child previously in the game, who just vanished. And I mean, like, teleported away in some sort of void. Like, you don't know what happened to them. Time and space got weird, and they were gone.
And this happens in Witcher, so it's not, like, unusual. I mean,
it's
weird.
Stuff like that happens. It's supposed to be weird. But this is, like, the strangest thing because, well, what I love about this is they had the confidence to put this medallion that only that character was wearing on the corpse of this guy, knowing only if you wanted more story and you were looting this to learn, would you have found this out, that this whole story, everything actually mattered because you created the final boss without even realizing it. And that's brilliant.
So the next two games that we're going to talk about, I haven't played it all, but I do know.
In our next twist.
I know, in the next twist. And we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger.
Hey, I played both of these. Wait, you played neither.
I've played neither, but I know them. I know them, but you
I guess I'm talking here.
So the twist is that you lose.
You lose.
You lose.
This is so... Okay, now both of these on the Super Nintendo, too. So for this to happen... like,
Super Nintendo trope.
I guess, but this just... It's kind of like stealing a main character, but even scarier, because who expects a canonical...
The villain wins.
The villain wins. So in Final Fantasy VI... You gathered up your whole party, you are chasing down the bad guys, everything's chaotic at the same time. You go to this floating continent to try and stop Kefka.
I feel like this has happened in Dragon Quest as well.
It happens a lot, but these are the two that we're talking about here. And you fight in a final boss, and all of a sudden things go out of alignment, and all of a sudden, no. Everything starts crumbling, the party gets split up, Kefka gets ultimate power, your entire party is like cast to the sea, and the continent below you starts crashing apart, the world is literally blowing up, and you skip a year as you follow one character who wakes up after a coma, and you have to slowly recuperate and try and build your party back up and convince them, even though that villain has overwhelming power, and we have tried this and failed, and they are stronger now, to try again. And it is a painful emotional journey, but you actually do this again in Chrono Trigger. So in Chrono Trigger, you're like going through time and space and realizing that the world is going to be destroyed at a certain time, and you have to gather enough strength to go to this point and challenge the final boss and face them. And you do this, and you think you're ready, and you're not ready. Even though you have done everything you possibly could have at this moment, you still fail, and not only do you fail, this is something that FF's, well, you can kind of do this in FF6. If you're impatient like me, you can accidentally kill a character. But Chrono, the main character, is actually killed here. So you are trying, like, that's actually why they retreat. Chrono is killed, and the whole party retreats, and Lavos, the final boss, gets away with basically destroying the world, and they have to retreat to the past to try and survive. And from this point, you have to either find some convoluted way to, like, body swap at that one moment to make sure that the real Chrono doesn't die, or go back and just try to gain strength and defeat Lavos anyway. And you can do that. There's tons of alternate endings, and I love that you have that choice.
That's what I feel like is great about that you lose scenario is you have to play it again and keep playing it. Because I also started thinking about FF7 kind of does the same thing. You get to that last cutscene and you're like, I lost.
You
the
lose.
Materia didn't work.
Yeah, the hope spell.
Yeah, it didn't work. But in that same cutscene, the Earth still gets saved and everything. So that's not the same as you lost in the middle of the game.
It certainly feels like you lose at the end of FF7 as well. I mean, something bad happened there. but it's not as horrible as the end of the world basically happened because you failed. FF6 in Chrono Trigger style.
Okay, this is a really weird one we got coming next.
Yep.
So the next plot twist, we're going to be talking about the games Shin Megami Tensei 4, Pikmin, the franchise,
Mostly one.
Xenoblade 2,
Yep.
Hollow Knight, and Metal Gear Solid 5.
So, you actually, I think you got Hollow Knight in the wrong one here. Because our next two twists are very similar. And we're going to talk, I guess we're going to talk about them both at the same time.
I guess Hollow Knight should really do...
It should be in the other one. So, never mind. We'll talk about that one when we get there. And same for Metal Gear Solid 5. You also have that in the wrong one. So, we're going to be talking about Shin Megami Tensei 4, Pikmin, and Xenoblade 2. Right, and the twist is... And you'll see why I can mix them up later.
Yeah.
You are not where you think you are. So this is a big twist where you have established you are in one place, or just a generic place unrelated to anything else, and something unremarkable. And all of a sudden you will stumble into a new, like, you realize where you are and it's not where it was. So this is kind of like Pokemon, you stumbled into Kanto without realizing it, except that was like a ton of extra content.
I guess if you were playing like the other SMT games, you would have been really thrown off by playing 4.
Yeah, so in Shin Megami Tensei 4, the weird thing is you start in a very, like, Arthurian legend or like samurai-esque Knights Code type world in a kingdom.
Yeah.
Totally different than you live in Japan and there are apocalypses left and right and demons are everywhere. So instead, like, you're battling demons that are coming out of this cavern in the floor. And as these samurai, and you earn up strength as a samurai, you start burrowing down deeper and deeper as your code allows. And you realize as you go deeper, there's a city beneath you. And it's all underneath this giant dome, and that's Tokyo. And you then realize this whole time you were on top of Tokyo post-apocalypse, where all the demons are.
You should have known the demons were coming out of Tokyo.
And of course, it was all in Tokyo. But it's like it was so cool getting to this point, because I had fully accepted this point. Oh, cool! I'm gonna play like this medieval, theme, like knights and samurais Shin Megami Tensei game.
Right.
No, it's both. It gets both best of both worlds.
Pikmin is a little bit. It's not as shocking. It's just kind of cute.
It's a weird thing that happens as the game goes on. You realize what's going on. And the other ones, like, since the reveal had kind of happened in Pikmin 1, the other two just assume, you're actually on Earth.
Yes. And
you're finding remnants and relics from Earth, but with no answers. And that's the thing with Pikmin. What happened to the people?
Well, I feel like we're going to get more answers for that in Pikmin 4, because now you're in the households of these people.
Which we have not played yet.
Right. So that was just kind of fun. You're not where you thought you were on some alien planet.
Because they told you you're on an alien planet.
Well, you are Olimar. You are on an alien planet.
Right. We don't know what any of these weird species are, or how long it has been since humans have existed.
So go out in your backyard and look for some Pikmin.
Look for little tiny cute creatures. Yes, absolutely. But I have one more here. And this is actually Xenoblade 2 doing a good thing. Look at this. A plot twist. You do not know where you think you are. Remember I mentioned that grand tree before? Well, the Evertree, you descend beneath the Cloud Sea in Xenoblade 2 and realize there is a ruined city down there. But these people all live in a fantasy world. Similarly to the end of the Future Redeemed, they don't know what this is. They just think these are giant, weird, like, cube-like structures. And you are going through these, and, like, the player knows what this is, but the actual characters don't. And I love it when that happens.
And the whole time you're thinking, like, you're looking for an actual tree, too. At least I would assume that. And
by that point, you think it's a tree. Yeah, but it's actually so overgrown. It was actually robotic, and it was a station that was tethered to the Earth through an elevator. There's a word for those things, but it's one of those. Anyway. So
this is why I got them mixed up, because it kind of uses the same wording.
Yep, so now we're going to talk about Hollow Knight.
Hollow Knight, Metal Gear Solid 5, Final Fantasy 7, and Ghost Trick, which I hope you don't spoil me too much to.
I'm going to do my darndest not to, because that is also a game that people can play right now. And they should.
So the last and final twist we're going to be talking about today is you are not who you think you are.
Yeah, no, you're not where you think you are. You are not who you think you are. This is great, too, because these are both subversions on what the player is expecting, and in the game world, they just go about their business.
Yeah.
So that's the best part of this.
Man, I think, I was going to say, I think I like Metal Gear Solid 5's the best, but FF7 threw me for a loop when I played it the first time.
I have reviewed and spoken about the twists in Hollow Knight and Metal Gear Solid 5. Hollow Knight is very basic. You obviously think that you are the Hollow Knight, and this isn't even much of a spoiler, but the Hollow Knight is actually the final boss. It's not you. You find out not even very quickly.
When you get to the City of Tears, you find out that you are not the Hollow Knight. Yes,
that's when you find out you're not the Hollow Knight. But then when you descend deeper into the world, you find out not only that, you're not special. You're not special at all. You're actually just one of millions of little offspring that is meant to just try this journey. And so like it's just made there to make you feel effort. Yeah, it's oof.
So, Metal Gear Solid 5, that was a shocker at the end of that, and that totally messes with everything about the original Metal Gear games. Like, this is a lot to talk about.
Well, the whole idea is, we told you, we warned you. So you find out you're not Big Boss. Surprise. You're actually just the medic who happened to be on the same helicopter when he was shot down. And he's off doing his own thing, which ends up being Outer Heaven.
And the reason why your face is wrapped at the beginning is because you've had plastic surgery on your face.
Yes. Which you think was there because I believe you actually
have shrapnel and...
Well, you create your character. You name your character and everything. And there's like no reason for this character creation because you play as what you think is Big Boss. And your face was immediately made irrelevant. That face is only used on the medic. And you realize, oh no, that's me. It's a really great twist.
That is a really good twist. So the best part about realize in the original Metal Gear games then, in Outer Heaven, that you're not actually fighting Big Boss anymore because at the end of Metal Gear Solid 5, he's getting ready to fight Solid Snake.
Yes, and as he is infiltrating your base. And I think the best part of this is one of the plot holes of the Metal Gear series was actually with those old MSX2 games, and it is that Big Boss dies twice. Now, in old games like that, you defeat a character and they just like vanish on the ground. Sure, they might be dead. They might have been knocked out.
Now there's an explanation.
But now we know, yes, he died because one was Big Boss and the other was this lookalike,
who we like to call Venom Snake.
Snake. It was the safe way to get around this.
So, the other two games we were going to talk about, one of my favorites, Final Fantasy VII. Mm-hmm. That threw me for a loop.
Wow. Yeah. This hurt you.
It really it mostly hurt me because...
She brings this up in terms of being so scared that in the remake, what is going to happen when Cloud is in a wheelchair? Are you going to cry the same tears
Well, that's
again?
Not even who I'm talking about at this
is
point.
kind of when you figure this out, though.
When you figure out...
that's kind of when you figure this out.
No, that's when you're sorting it out.
It breaks his brain.
I think the thing that killed me the most is when I was a kid, I was not a strong reader. So the first time you play through this memory that Cloud has of being this soldier and you're reading all the dialogue, and it's very dialogue heavy, and they ask you to save in the middle of it.
Yeah, game's a book.
So then suddenly we find out that Cloud's memories are Zack's memories.
He's not Cloud.
And that Cloud is just a mook. He's a nobody.
Yeah. He thought he was this first-class soldier, and you are told this from the beginning of the game. But there's a lot of inconsistencies. People say, like, I don't remember you in Soldier. Right. Who are you? And they should know this because first rank is as high as it gets, obviously. And for them to not know him, that should be troubling. But you just have to swallow it and keep going.
Right. And like, you eventually have to replay through all those memories, but now you're replacing where Cloud was before with Zack, and, me being a struggling reader at the time, now having to play another 2-hour section of reading.
But still, it's something really cool.
It threw me for a huge loop.
It inspired the entire game Crisis Core just because of this twist.
You've got to figure out, well, what happened to Zack?
Which is Crisis Core,
the rest of it, and now you've got to play through the rest of the game knowing that you're not who you think you are. Who are you really? Do you really know Tifa? Is she part of your life? And that was just a fun ride.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering, if you're not familiar with it, how on earth could that ever happen? He was put in like a stasis tank for like 3 years of something, being tested on for a long time.
With Zack at the same time. And...
Yeah, they explain it, but still, within their universe. But anyway, the last game, before we can finally end this...
That you can't spoil.
That I'm going to try my best not to spoil it, because I want you guys to play it, and I want her to play it. is Ghost Trick. Now, Ghost Trick is made by the same wonderful writer who does Phoenix Wright. And you can tell when you play it. It's written very clever, it's funny, and it is also witty, and the puzzles are very smart, and it's also engaging in the gameplay that makes a visual novel great. Play Ghost Trick.
I've only played it for like 10-15 minutes, but I really love the animations in it and the art styles.
So I will just give you this one little teaser then of a You Are Not Who You Think You Are. You start the game, and it just says, and I'm dead. And you start dead. And there's your corpse. You're looking at it right there. And, well, it turns out you're not who you think you are. So the whole game, you're looking at this character, trying to figure out who you are. And once you finally get to the ending, and it's this wonderful twist in terms of gameplay and how you're trying to solve and save people. Because your goal in Ghost Trick is to, like, save a person's life in, like, 4 minutes. And you gotta, like, trick things in the room. It's really cool. But when you finally figure out who you are, it ties everything together again, and like, ooh, it's so good. I'm trying to. You're not who you think you are. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I can't say any more to it other than that. It's brilliant.
That is where we will wrap it up. If any of you guys know what these actual plot twists are called,
well, if in literary terms,
right? Then please let us know what those names are.
Or if there's other plot twists or games that pull these things that you appreciate as well. Here's my last little Scyther egg, and I'm sorry, not a single one of them was sparkly for you guys, but hey, I got you to watch something for all this time. I'll be blabbering about plot twists.
Yeah, you might have even put us on mute, and you're just like, is he going to No, he's not going to get us that.
Or you just had the brains to listen to us on podcasts instead, which hopefully will be coming to more other than Spotify. I'm working towards that, but I'm one guy, I'm doing my best, and I'm a daddy, and I gotta go get my baby.
I'm really excited for myself maybe to start my own podcast. I'm not sure where that's going. Maybe 2 different podcasts.
Oh my god. Well, we're planning stuff anyway. That is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode of HitBox. If you enjoy the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes and this video's description. For those of you on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more. Be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members.
Bye!